Hi everyone. So this tutorial recording is for the students of IT department who is taking the tutorial slot on Wednesday 10 to 12. So we couldn't do chapter 3 cost assignment. The second question of those tutorials we couldn't complete during the physical class. So as promised, this is your lecture recording. Right. So if you can remember the chapter 3, which is cost assignment lesson. So definitely you have gone through the full lesson. And if you can remember, when it comes to costing systems, there are two costing systems we discuss. Direct costing system and then the absorption costing system. We discuss the definitions, we discuss the difference and all. And then when it comes to absorption costing systems, we can use two methods, two systems, traditional absorption costing system and the activity-based costing system. So during the first phase of this first part of our tutorial, again, we discussed what is traditional absorption costing system and then what is activity-based costing system. And then we discussed traditional absorption costing and then we did the tutorial question as well. As a continuation of that particular question, we are going to discuss ABC system or activity-based costing system today, right? So that is our purpose. So if I just go through the slides, so these things you have discussed in the lecture as well as in the tutorial as well. If I show you this question you discussed in the lecture itself, and then these are the stages. And this one, activity 3.3, this question we discussed in the tutorial that day, if you can remember. But since I want you to remember this question in order to continue the second part of this one, I will just quickly go through this question for you. So if you can remember, in this enterprise company, there are 3 production centers and 2 service centers, right? And then the cost, the expenses, overhead items are listed like this: indirect wages and supervision. And I told you the 5 departments are there, including 3 production and 2 service. They have allocated the cost and given. So we say it's a direct allocation, right? The cost is already allocated and given. And then if we take indirect materials, again, we don't have to allocate the cost to each department. It is already allocated and given. We call it direct allocation, right? And then if you just see lighting and heating, property taxes, insurance of machinery, all these overhead items are there, but the allocation for each and every department is not given. That means you have to select an appropriate allocation base and then allocate the cost to each and every department, right? That's what we did. So using this table, you can actually allocate the cost, right? The book value of machinery, area occupied in square meters, number of employees, direct labor hours, machine hours, all the details are there for each and every department. 5 departments are there. So using the table, using the information given in this table, we calculated overhead absorption rates and then we completed the question, right? So that's what we did. So if I just show you the answer we got, this is what we did actually. So we prepared the overhead analysis sheet like this. I told you these are the columns we use. We have 3 production departments, 2 service departments. So likewise, we do it. Okay, so each and every overhead cost, we write the basis, we write the total cost. This is taken from the question itself. And then some costs are directly allocated. We write the basis as direct. And then for some overhead expenses where the allocation is not there, we have to select an appropriate allocation base and allocate the cost accordingly. Right. And if you can remember, usually when we have the overhead expenses, we allocate the cost for both production departments and service departments, right? And then after allocating each and every cost element, we reallocate the cost of service departments. We reallocate the cost of service departments, right? We are not keeping the cost in service departments. So what are the service departments in this question? Material procurement and factory. So if you can remember, using an appropriate allocation base, you reallocate. Reallocating means you are removing the cost 1.76 million, you are removing it from the material procurement and then reallocating to 3 production departments. Factory support department also, you are removing 1.8 million cost from the factory support department and then you are reallocating to 3 production departments. Likewise, you reallocate the cost. Then you can take the total cost like this. You are taking the total cost. And then the next step is to calculate the overhead absorption rate, right? So you have different allocation bases for that as well. So it says the company uses machine hour rates for the machine production centers, direct labor hour rate for assembly centers. So it's directly given. Machine center X, machine center Y, these are machine production centers. So what is the allocation base? Machine hours. Assembly, what is the allocation base? Labor hours, direct labor hours. So using the given data, now in the table, the data is there, right? Machine center X and Y, how many machine hours are there? Assembly center, how many direct labor hours are there? 2 million. Using these figures, you can calculate the overhead absorption rate. So this is how you take the total. You can see the formula. You take the total and then you divide by the relevant hours. And I told you how to interpret this in the correct way. 2 rupees and 15 cents per machine hour. That's how you write the correct overhead absorption rate as well. Right. Now you have the overhead absorption rates for 3 production departments. Now it's just a matter of calculating the unit cost, isn't it? When it comes to the unit cost, you take the direct cost. Direct cost is there. And then you write the overhead allocations like that. Machine center X, Y, and assembly. You know the rate, 2 rupees and 15 cents per hour. So if there are 5 hours, likewise, you calculate the cost using the number of hours. Okay, that's how you do it. Like this. So this information is given in this table, right? If you can remember, using this table, we know how many hours for product A, how many hours for product B, from each and every department. All the details are given. So you can multiply, just a matter of multiplying the rate with the number of hours. This is how you calculated the overhead absorption sheet as well as the unit cost, isn't it? Right. Now, if I just show you, this is part A actually. Okay, this is chapter 3, part A. Now, if you open part 2, cost assignment part 2, we are discussing the activity-based costing method in this slide. So one way of allocating the overhead cost is using traditional absorption costing method. That's what we discussed so far. And then another method we can use is activity-based costing, ABC method, right? Now, when it comes to the stages, actually, when it comes to the ABC method, here we identify major activities in an organization. We are not allocating the cost to departments. Previously, in traditional absorption costing method, we allocated the cost to departments, isn't it? And then we calculated the unit cost after allocating the cost. But now we are not allocating the cost to departments. We are allocating the cost to major activities in the organization. So in the production flow in the organization, we are identifying what are the major activities that happen in this organization, and then we assign the cost to those major activities, right? Activities. You call it activity cost center because activity becomes the cost center. We accumulate the cost to the activity. So activity cost center, or you call it activity cost pools. Let me take the pointer. Activity cost pools. You pool the cost to the activity, right? Now we have the major activities, list of activities, and now we have identified the cost to each activities, estimated cost. And then we determine what drives this activity. What actually drives this activity? If the driver, we call it cost driver. If the cost driver increases, the cost of that activity will increase. If the cost driver decreases, the cost of that activity would decrease. Likewise, what actually drives the cost? Now, as an example, when it comes to the material procurement, if we take material procurement, purchasing materials in an organization as one major activity, what actually drives this activity? What actually drives? Let's say number of material purchases, number of material requests. You can say different things, right? Suitable. So when the number of material procurements increases, the cost of material procurement, that activity cost would increase. Likewise, if you take the quality inspection cost, now quality inspection is the activity. It is one major activity in the production flow, quality inspection. Now, what is the driver of that quality inspection activity? What is the driver? When the number of quality inspections increase in the organization, quality inspection cost would also increase. When the number of quality inspections are very low in the organization, quality inspection cost is also very low. That is the driver. So likewise, for each and every major cost item, major activity, you identify a cost driver. And then what you do, you take the cost of that activity and then you allocate that cost from the cost driver quantity. So this is how you calculate the formula activity cost driver rate. You have discussed that as well. You take the total cost of that activity and then you divide it by the allocation base. What is that? Activity level of the selected cost driver. That means if we take the cost of the quality inspection as the total cost of the activity, and if you divide it by the number of quality inspections, now you can take what is the cost per inspection, right? That is the activity cost driver rate. That is how you calculate the formula. Right. Now you have basic understanding. Right. Now this activity 3.6 is the continuation of activity 3.3 and 3.4 we did, right? The activity we just discussed. Now it says, in addition to the information from activity 3.3 and 3.4, that means you need to remember that information in the previous questions. The following additional information is also provided. The following information relates to the activities carried out in material procurement. See, now, what is material procurement? Material procurement. If I show you the question, material procurement is one service center. See, one service center we had in activity 3.3. And then the following information relates to the activities carried out in general factory support. What is general factory support? It is another service center we had. So that means in this question, they have taken two service centers, and then they have identified what are the major activities carried out in these two service centers, right? Now, if we take material procurement service center, what are the activities? Purchasing materials, receiving materials, dispersing materials. And then they have given the cost for each and every activity like this. If you take general factory support, What are the activities? Production scheduling, setting up the machines, quality inspection, and then they have given us the cost as well, right? This is how you take the cost. Now, another thing. Can you remember this one? Now the answer the overhead analysis sheet we prepared for previous question. If you take material procurement department cost, material procurement, see what was the total cost? 1.76 million, isn't it? 1.76 million. Now look at the total of this one based on the activities. Even though you take the activity-wise cost, the total equals to 1.76 million, right? The material procurement department. If you take factory support, what is the cost of that service center? 1.8 million. Again, if you take the activities and the cost per activities, the total equals to 1.8 million. So the costs are equal. I hope you got the point, right? Activity-wise, the cost is given, but the total is the same. And then it says, other information, number of setup hours, 12,000 hours, number of production runs, 2,000 runs, number of first item inspections, 1,000 inspections, number of purchase orders, 10,000, number of material receipts, 5,000. Additional information given. And then they have given us a table. Machine center X, machine center Y, assembly. Now, we can't forget our production departments. Now, we have 3 production departments as well. Now, in this question, it is actually, they have given us the activities only for the service departments, isn't it? So that doesn't mean we don't have production departments. We have the production departments. This is a continuation. Give me a second. All right. So we can't forget the production departments. There are 3 production departments as well. So information given, 3 production departments, and then quantity of activity cost driver for 100 units of product A. If you produce product A, to produce 100 units of product A, how many machine hours are required from machine center X? How many machine hours are required from machine center Y? How many direct labor hours are required from assembly department? Not for 1 unit, 100 units of product A. Now look at the rest of the columns. Number of purchase orders. Now, how many purchase orders are required to produce 100 units of product A? Only 1. How many material receipts are required? Only 1. How many production runs are required? To produce 100 units of product A, you need 5 production runs. How many number of setup hours? 50 setup hours. And then how many first time inspections are there? Only 1. Likewise, for 100 units of product A, they have given us the activity cost drivers. So still we have not matched what is the major activity and then the cost drivers, isn't it? We haven't matched, but the information given. Say similarly, for 200 units of product B, how many machine hours, how many labor hours, how many purchase orders, material receipts, all the information given. Right. Now, calculate the manufacturing cost of a unit of each product using ABC. Using activity-based costing, calculate the unit cost. This is what we have to do. Right. Now you have the answer. I hope you have the answer of the previous question actually. Overhead analysis sheet, this one, and then these numbers. Now we will do the answer for this activity as well. It is a continuation, right? Now to calculate the unit cost actually, first of all, I have a table like this, similar to this, you can have your own answer. I have taken the activity and then I'm going to write the cost in front of that activity. And I'm going to identify what is the most suitable cost driver for each and every major activity. And then how many hours or how many orders or how many production runs are there. And then what is the cost driver rate, right? This is what we are going to calculate. But the important thing, now the activities are given for only service departments, isn't it? Only for material procurement and the general factory support. But I told you, we can't forget the production departments as well. There are 3 production departments. So what are those production departments? X, Y, and assembly. We have to take that cost as well, first of all. So here we can't calculate the cost again. We can take this cost directly from the previous answer. That's why I told you we need to have that answer with us. Now, think about the answer since you can't tell me the answer. What is the cost of this machine center X? Now we have to write the cost of machine center X. What is the cost of this machine center X? Is it 2.97, or if you take the total of the cost 2.97, or after taking material procurement and factory support cost here, the portions, or is it 4.3 million? What should be the cost of the machine center X? What do you think? Right? You can argue. Now, if we take 4.3 million as the total cost, that means you have taken the directly assigned 2.97 plus the reallocated service department cost as well, right? Reallocated service cost as well. But now in this question, we are taking our service cost separately, isn't it? The material procurement, general factory, department-wise, activity-wise, we are going to take the cost and allocate and do the calculation. So if you just take this 4.3 million, that means in addition to 2.97 million, you have taken reallocated cost as well. So if you take 4.3 million, it will be double counted. That's why you need to take only 2.97 million. You are not taking the service cost centers because we are going to take it in future. So you are taking only 2.97 million. So likewise, I'm taking the cost here. And then what is the cost driver of machine center X? If you can remember, the cost driver was machine hours, isn't it? Machine hours for machine centers, direct labor hours for assembly centers. So I'm writing machine hours. And then how many machine hours are there for machine center X? How many machine hours? We actually have the table. See, machine center X, machine hours, 2 million. So I'm writing 2 million. And then what is the cost? Cost driver rate? We can't exactly say cost driver rate, but for this question's sake, you take the cost, 2.97 million, and then you divide it by the machine hours, you have the cost. How do you actually interpret this? Rupees, 1 rupees and 48 or 49 cents per machine hour. That's how you interpret. What about machine center Y? Are you taking 2.69 million or are you taking 3.8 million? You are taking 2.69 million. You write it here. What is the cost driver? We checked it previously. It should be machine hours. And then what is the quantity? Quantity 1 million. 1 million machine hours. See, 1 million. So I'm writing 1 million and then I'm calculating the rate like this. I'm not writing again. You know how to write it. And then we have the assembly, right? Assembly. Assembly, what is the cost? Are you taking 2.48 million or 3.6 million? Exactly, it should be without the service cost. That means 2.48 million. I'm taking this. What is the cost driver? Direct labor hour. Cost driver is direct labor hour. How many direct labor hours are there for assembly center? You look at the table. Direct labor hours, 2 million. 2 million. So I'm writing 2 million here, right? And then calculating the cost. 1 rupees and 24 cents per direct labor hour. Right. Now, before coming into activity-based costing, the major activities and then selecting the cost drivers, we have calculated production center cost rates like this. That's what you need to do first. Now we are moving to our service departments, material procurement and the general factory support. Now we have three major activities, isn't it? Purchasing materials, receiving and dispersing materials. We have the cost as well. Shall we take the cost? 960,000, 600,000, 200,000. Shall I take the cost of general factory support as well? 1 million for production scheduling. And then setting up machines, 600,000. Quality inspection, 200,000. Likewise, you take the cost. Right. Now, you need to decide what is the cost driver. Now, what's the cost driver for purchasing materials? What drives that activity? Receiving materials, disbursing materials, production scheduling, setting up machines, quality inspection. What are the drivers? So you have the information given here, isn't it? Number of setup hours, production hours, first time inspections, likewise. I will give you few minutes or few seconds to think about it. How do you match these cost drivers with the major activities? Think about it. I hope you matched the cost drivers with the activities. So basically, if you take purchasing materials, what is the most suitable cost driver? Purchasing materials. Is it setting up hours? Or is it production hours? Production runs. Or is it inspection hours? Or number of inspections? Or is it purchase orders or material receipts? Purchasing materials. It should be what? The most suitable out of this list? Purchase orders. When the number of purchase orders increase, purchasing material, that activity cost would also increase. So you write number of purchase orders. Now, if you take the quantity of purchase orders, number of purchase orders, 10,000. So write 10,000. Okay. Now, if the cost of purchasing material is 960,000, and if there are expected 10,000 purchase orders, if you divide 960,000 by 10,000, you have 96 rupees. How do you interpret this? Rupees 96 per purchase order. Remember, the interpretation is very important. Otherwise, you can't calculate the unit cost. Right. Receiving materials. Check the list again. Receiving materials. What should be the most suitable cost driver? We have one, number of material receipts. So I'm taking number of material receipts. How many receipts are there? They are expecting 5,000. So similarly, I'm copy pasting the same formula. Dividing 600,000 by 5,000, you have the answer 120. How do you interpret? Rupees 120 per machine material receipt. Disbursing materials. How are you going to disburse the materials from your warehouse? Based on what? Based on the material receipts or based on the purchase orders or the inspections? production runs or the setup hours? Most probably, when you are producing more, when you have more production runs going in the production flow, you will be disbursing more materials. So in that case, you can take the cost driver as number of production runs, isn't it? So I'm taking number of production runs. How many production runs are there? They are expecting 2000. 2000. So I'm taking the cost 100 rupees per production run. And then production scheduling, that's easy. Production scheduling cost would increase when you have more production runs going. So I'm taking number of production runs again as the cost driver. Again, it's 2000. And then the cost driver rate would be 500 rupees per production run. What about setting up machines? That cost. It is direct because you have number of setup hours given. Number of setup hours, 12,000 hours. And it is 50 rupees per setup hour. And then quality inspection, it is also direct. You have number of first time inspections, number of, I'm just writing inspections. How many inspections are there? 1,000. 1,000. Right, the cost is 200 rupees per inspection. Likewise, in this question, you, first of all, you considered the previous production departments and then you calculated the cost. And then you had service departments. And for those two service departments, the question gives you the major activities. The activity cost drivers were not available for each and every major activity. You had to decide what is the most suitable cost driver. And remember, this cost driver would not be the same for all the questions, right? Depending on the situation, depending on the question, you will have to select the most suitable cost driver, right? So you took the quantity of each cost driver and using the quantity and the cost, you calculated the cost driver rate. So before starting with the unit cost, you need to calculate these cost drivers first. So these are activity cost driver rates. In the exam also, if you have a question like this, make sure you clearly write the activity, you clearly mention the cost driver, and then show how are you going to calculate the cost driver rate, maybe the formula. Because if your final answer is incorrect, there will be marks provided for your workings. So make sure you write the formula and then how you calculate it and then write the cost driver rate. Use a similar format to this. Right. Now we have the cost driver rates. Okay. And now for my reference purpose, actually, I have the sheet. I have the format. You also can have this format. Now we have two products now, product A and product B. Now, if you recall the question, product A, it is manufactured in 100 units batches, and then product B in 200 units. Now, we have to calculate cost per batch, cost per 100 units batch, or cost per 200 units batch. And then if you want, you can just divide the cost by 100 or 200 and calculate the unit cost. That's up to you, right? So first of all, we calculate the cost per batch, 200 units batch or 100 units batch. Fine. Now, first of all, when you calculate the unit cost, it can be traditional absorption costing method or it can be activity-based costing method. Both methods we use only for overhead costing. Since we can't directly identify the overhead cost to products, that's why we call it overhead, indirect. We use activity-based costing or traditional absorption costing method to calculate the cost. But there are so many direct costs available like direct material, direct labor, direct other. You can directly identify these costs. So when you calculate the unit cost, first of all, you need to take the direct cost. So what are the direct costs available? This one, right? In activity 3.4, you have been given the direct cost directly. Direct cost per unit, 100 and 200. Now, if you take, we are talking about 100 units batch. So I'm taking 100 rupees per unit multiplied by 100 units. This is the cost. What about product B? The cost is 200. 200 multiplied by 200 units in the batch. This is the cost. And then we can take the overhead allocation. So I'm having a small subtopic, overhead allocation, and then we are allocating the cost. Right. Now, we have 3 production departments, and then we have these activities for service departments. Now, in this question, in this table, in the activity cost ABC method table, we have, right, the information. We need 500 machine hours from machine center X to produce 100 units of product A. So I have written that information here for my purpose. You also can do the same. That means I need 500 machine hours from machine center X to manufacture 100 units of product A. What about product B? I haven't written it. 2000 machine hours. I need 2000 machine hours from machine center X to produce 200 units of product B. Look at machine center Y, similarly 1000. Here for product B, 4000. So I'm writing the numbers first. Remember, this is not to produce 1 unit. This is to produce batches. Assembly, 1000 direct labor hours. Here, 4000 direct labor hours. And then look at the purchase orders, material receipts, production runs and everything. Here, I'm not just writing the cost driver wise. I'm writing activity wise. That is easy now. Purchasing materials. Now, what is the driver for purchasing materials? Purchase orders, right? Purchase orders. So, how many purchase orders we need to produce 100 units of product A? Only one. So, that's why I have written only one here. I haven't mentioned purchase orders, that name, but you know, it is the purchase orders. What about product B? Again, one. The second activity, receiving materials. What was the cost driver? Material receipts. How many material receipts required? 1 and 1. 1 and 1. Disbursing materials. What was the cost driver? Production runs. How many production runs for product A? 5 and 1. 5 here and 1. What about production scheduling? Production scheduling, number of production runs. How many production runs? Again, 5 and 1. 5 and 1. Setting up machines. Machine setup hours, 50 and 10. So I'm writing 50 and 10. Quality inspections, how many? 1 and 1. So 1 and 1. Likewise, you are writing the quantities required to produce the batches. Now, just a matter of multiplying the number of hours or number of orders or number of schedulings by the rate calculated. Now here, 500 machine hours required. What is the rate per machine hour? X, machine center X, per machine hour, 1.485. Just a matter of multiplying that, right? Okay. What about machine center Y? We need 1000 machine hours. 1 hour, 2.69 rupees. Assembly, we need 1000 direct labor hours. 1 hour is only 1.24, 1 rupees and 24 cents. Likewise, you multiply. What about purchasing materials? Now that means this is purchase orders. No? One purchase order, only one purchase order. How much is that? 96 rupees, right? 96 rupees per purchase order. Receiving materials. Material receipts. what was the cost? 120. 120 rupees per material received. Disbursing materials, 5. What is this 5? 5 means production runs. What is the cost? 100 rupees. That means disbursing material cost per production run is 100 rupees. Production scheduling again, 5 multiplied by 500 rupees. That is the cost driver rate. Setting up machines, 50 multiplied by 50. Quality inspection only 1 multiplied by per inspection rupees 200. Likewise, you took the total cost. Now, you can take the total direct cost, these production costs, and then material procurement cost, general factory support, and your cost, total cost equals to 20,589. This is for 1 unit to 100 units. This is for 100 units. So if you want to calculate the unit cost, just a matter of dividing 20,589 by 100 units. 206, right? This is the cost. Okay, this is how you calculate the cost using activity-based costing method, Lamai. Now here actually since we have combined 2 or 3 questions, you have both traditional absorption costing elements as well as ABC elements. Sometimes the whole question can be coming from the activity-based costing method. So it is just a matter of taking the major activities, cost drivers, calculating the cost driver rates, and then multiplying by the relevant number of hours or the runs likewise. Okay, this is how you take the cost. So I'm not doing the answer for product B, that is for your homework. So this is how you do it. If you have any clarifications or questions, you can ask me when we start the physical lectures. So I hope this is clear. Right. All right. With that, thank you very much.